Imagine being chained from birth, not with metal chains, but with something more subtle and powerful, illusion. 2,400 years ago, in the streets of Athens, a man walked barefoot, questioning everything and everyone. Plato, disciple of Socrates and teacher of Aristotle, wasn't just a philosopher, he was a revolutionary thinker. Born into an Athenian aristocratic family, he could have chosen the comfort of politics or business. Instead, he chose the relentless pursuit of truth, even when that pursuit led him to disturbing conclusions about the nature of our reality. In his most famous work, The Republic, Plato presents us with the allegory of the cave, a story so powerful that it echoes through millennia right into our smartphones. Imagine prisoners chained since childhood in an underground cave. They are positioned so they can only look at the wall in front of them, never behind or to the sides. Behind them stands a high wall. Behind the wall, a fire casting light. Between the fire and the wall, people carry objects, projecting shadows on the wall that the prisoners observe. For these captives, the shadows are the only reality they know. They name them, discuss them, build their lives around them, never suspecting there exists a world beyond the cave, illuminated not by an artificial fire, but by the sun. When a prisoner is freed and forced to turn around, at first the light blinds him. The real objects seem less real than the shadows. If dragged outside the cave, the sunlight would be unbearably painful. Gradually, his eyes would adjust. He would see reflections in water, then the objects themselves, the stars, the moon, and finally the sun itself, the source of all visibility. If he returned to the cave to free the others, his vision, now unaccustomed to darkness, would make him appear ridiculous in the eyes of those who never left. "See what happens when you go up there," they would say. "You come back blind and confused. Better not even try to leave." This isn't just a story about epistemology. It's a call to liberation that resonates with frightening urgency in our digital age. Look around you. Aren't we all, in some way, trapped in modern caves? The screens we obsessively consume, aren't they the new walls where we observe shadows? The algorithms that filter our perception of reality, aren't they the new manipulators of objects behind the wall? The filter bubbles, echo chambers, the curated reality we consume, aren't they all sophisticated versions of Plato's shadows? Think about the last time you endlessly scrolled through your news feed. What were you seeing? Reality or a distorted projection of it? When you form an opinion about a world event based solely on headlines and comments, aren't you, like the prisoners, naming and discussing shadows? Plato would warn us, what you consume online is not the real world. It's a highly mediated representation, often distorted and intentionally manipulated to keep your eyes fixed on the wall. True freedom, Plato would argue, begins with the painful recognition that much of what you believe you know is actually a comfortable illusion. The process of breaking the chains is uncomfortable, even agonizing. Questioning your own convictions, challenging your most basic assumptions, recognizing that perhaps you've spent years, decades, even mistaking shadows for reality. No wonder many prefer to remain chained. But what if you had the courage to turn your head? What if you dared to look beyond the representations to reality itself? What would you discover? Perhaps that the person you demonized based on cherry-picked posts is actually complex and multifaceted like you. Perhaps that conspiracy theory that seems so convincing in the digital cave doesn't withstand the scrutiny of sunlight. Perhaps the happiness you seek isn't in the projected shadows of carefully curated lives on Instagram, but in the direct experience of the world and genuine human connections. Plato's invitation isn't to intellectual elitism, but to personal revolution. He doesn't suggest that only a chosen few can see the truth. He insists that we all have the innate capacity to ascend from the cave into the light. True education, for him, isn't inserting knowledge into empty minds, but reorienting the entire soul, turning the head, breaking the chains, walking out of the cave. How might you apply this ancient wisdom to your life today? Start by questioning your sources of information. Where do the truths you accept come from? Who controls the narratives that shape your worldview? Practice the discomfort of seeking perspectives radically different from your own, not necessarily to adopt them, but to remember that your particular cave is not the entire world. Experiment with periods of digital detox, moments when you deliberately step away from the projected shadows to experience reality directly. Notice how your perception changes when you spend a week without social media or an entire day in nature without technological mediation. Cultivate relationships that exist primarily in the physical world, not the virtual one. Engage in deep face-to-face conversations, where nuances, expressions, and the complete humanity of the other cannot be reduced to emojis and text. Most importantly, practice epistemic humility, the awareness that much of what you know might be merely knowledge of shadows. Like Socrates, Plato's mentor, recognize that true wisdom begins with acknowledging your own ignorance. This isn't an invitation to nihilism or extreme relativism, but to the ongoing process of questioning, examining, and refining your understanding. Plato offers us not just a critique of illusion, but a path to liberation. He reminds us that, however comfortable the cave may seem, it is a prison that limits our human potential. The journey outward is difficult, sometimes lonely, often ridiculed by those who remain chained. But the reward, seeing the world as it truly is, in all its complexity, beauty, and truth, is nothing less than the fulfillment of our full humanity. Today, as you return to your screens after this moment of reflection, ask yourself, am I seeing reality or merely shadows on the wall? What if I turn my head just a little to see what's projecting those shadows? The digital cave runs deep, but the sunlight awaits all who have the courage to emerge. This is Firefly. See you tomorrow.